the regulations, and in this case, the reporting institution is the bank. And upon suspicion that any of the transactions or activities described or any other transaction or activity could constitute or be related to money laundering or to the proceeds of crime, the reporting institution, for example, a bank, is supposed to report the suspicious or unusual transaction or activity to the center in the prescribed form. And the center here, we're talking about the financial reporting center. So this is a requirement, and of course we are just looking at whether the banks have adhered to such policies and such requirements, and what role can they play then in curbing corruption and money laundering in the country. And we are asking you, have you been a victim of any of this? Could it be fraud? Could it be money laundering? Have you been a victim at a given point? Share with us your experiences at KBC Channel 1 at Safin_Achieng and at Kato Achieng. The hashtag we are using is Walking the Talk. I will be sampling some of your experiences in the course of this conversation, even as we seek to enlighten you on financial reporting when it comes to the war on graft. We also have a studio audience who will form a very pivotal part of this conversation. We'll also be getting their views as we continue. For now, it's back to you, Achenga.
Well, thank you, Safin, and give us your feedback. She will be back later to sample what you have to say. But for now, let me introduce you to my panelists who are joining me this evening, and I'll begin to my immediate left, where we have with us James Manyoge, who is the Director, Legal Compliance and External Relations at the Financial Reporting Center. It's good to have you this evening.
Thanks, Catherine, and thanks for having me over. And let me join you also in wishing all the ladies and women out there a happy International Women's Day.
Well, thank you. We also have with us Caroline Saroni, who is the chairperson at the Advocates Complaints Commission. Happy International Women's Day to you as well.
Happy International Women's Day, and thank you for having me here.
All right. Let's begin our discussion this evening. We're talking about financial reporting and when it comes to the war against graft. But first, let's begin with what really happens at the Financial Reporting Center where you sit.
Thank you very much, Catherine. First of all, who are we? I had a colleague there introduce the Financial Reporting Center.
Yes.
So we are a government agency. We are established under the Proceeds of Crime and Anti-Money Laundering Act. In terms of government reporting, we report to we are under the National Treasury and Planning. That's our line ministry.
Yeah.
So what do we do? The Proceeds of Crime and Anti-Money Laundering Act, which Safin read to us, places a number of obligations upon persons who we call reporting institutions.
Yes.
We have broadly two categories of reporting institutions. We have what we call financial institutions, people like banks, microfinance banks, forex bureaus, other players in the capital markets, as well as insurance companies, particularly those ones who are undertaking insurance life business.
Okay.
Then you have another category of persons who are called designated non-financial business or professions. These are persons who are susceptible to money laundering by virtue of their business or profession. So we have real estate dealers, we have accountants, we have lawyers, we have motor vehicle dealers, dealers in precious metals and precious stones. So these two categories of persons are then who we refer to under the Act as our reporting institutions.
Where do mobile money come in? It falls in the first category of financial
mobile money then falls in the first category of financial institutions, because by the nature of their business, they're able then to transfer money and virtual money. So they're in the first category of financial institutions. Yeah.
In terms of reporting, what is expected of these institutions? Are they supposed to do this daily, weekly, or how does it work?
The way it works, when it comes to reporting, there are three principal areas of reporting.
Yeah.
There's what we call, first of all, the suspicious transaction reporting. Now, there's an obligation which Safin just read, Section 44, 45, and 46 of the Act, which places reporting obligations upon reporting institutions. Now, reporting institutions, now when I talk reporting institutions, I'm talking broadly, both the financial institutions and the GNABPs. They are required to know their customers, their clients, know how they deal with them, know their operations, know their details. When they then deal with their customers, they're supposed to then pick out what they we call suspicious transactions. Now, suspicious transactions are not illegal transactions. They're just transactions which are out of the ordinary by the way the institution knows its customer. So for example, for me, James, if I'm a customer of an institution, the institution will know that probably I work at the Financial Reporting Center. This is the position I hold. This is probably the nature of my income. And they'll be able to have a relatively good idea of who I am. As they deal with me daily, they'll know my relation with them. Then where there's something which is out of the ordinary, they're supposed to pick this out and then report it to the Financial Reporting Center.
If, for example, out of the blue, you come and deposit a huge amount of money.
A huge amount of money, which is probably not in the line of business that I do, or not in the line of the profession that I'm in, or not in the line of probably the activities that I undertake, because I may be employed, but I may be a landlord somewhere, I may be undertaking some business. So if the institution has this information, they have a relatively good idea of who I am and what my income is.
So how often should they report? Daily?
The suspicious transaction reporting is upon the occurrence of an activity, when a transaction or an activity in relation to the customer is odd. So they look at it, they don't just report it, they try to satisfy themselves to get an understanding. If they're able to understand and they have the customer gives them information and they are satisfied with it, they don't have to report. But if they find there's something which is still out of the ordinary, then they will report it. But there's also the other category of cash transactions. Cash transactions, the law has placed a threshold of $10,000 or its equivalent. That's about a million shillings. So anything of $1 million shillings, whether or not it's suspicious, that should be reported. Now that one should be reported within 7 days, within the end of the activity the day that the transaction took place. So today being a Sunday, if I make a cash transaction of today, then by the end of the week, by Friday, it should be reported. For suspicious transaction, they should be reported immediately after the transfer, but within 7 days. Then there's another category of reports which come from persons who go out of the country or come into the country. Those are what we call the monitor instrument declarations. These are made to the customs officer, and then those are reported to us through the customs officer.
We'll be looking a little bit about how many transactions are reported every now and then. But before we do that, you fall under category 2 based on what James has been saying.
Yes,
as the Advocates Complaints Commission, how do you fit into this?
First, before I tell you how we fit in, I explain how we fit in, I'll probably tell the viewers and the panelists what we do.
You as the commission?
Yes, as the commission. So the Advocates Complaints Commission falls under the Office of the Attorney General. And we are a commission established by statute, the Advocates Act. So our work or our mandate is to investigate complaints, then we prosecute the complaints under the disciplinary committee.
So complaints against lawyers?
Yes, complaints against lawyers, but the category of complaints that we look at are professional misconduct. And if you want to know whether a lawyer has misconducted himself, then we go to the Code of Ethics. So there's a Law Society Code of Ethics that guides us with regards to how advocates should behave or how they should carry out their profession. So
what kind of reports do you get regarding misconduct?
We get reports, for example, an advocate withheld money, client's money. So for example, a member of public is involved in an accident, and then they go to a lawyer to represent them. Then the client is paid by the insurance company through the lawyer, but the lawyer fails to pass that money to the client, then the client can come to the commission and complain. Yes. Because that is one of the offense that we call withholding funds. Yes.
In terms of, when it comes to the war against graft, how often do you get cases against advocates?
Mostly, most of these cases go to the court, straight to the court, yes. And they are investigated by DCI, and the lawyers are charged in court, just like murder cases, like the one that a lawyer has just been recently charged. And what happens is that once they are convicted, then we come in. Because a conviction means that that is conduct and becoming of a lawyer. And therefore, we are able to say that the way that this lawyer conducted himself brought disrepute to the profession. And we are able to charge and prosecute the lawyer at the disciplinary committee.
So how many lawyers have you been able to prosecute effectively in the past, let's say 1 year?
In the past quarter, we actually do quarterly reports.
Okay.
We have quarterly reports. It's a requirement of the Act that we do quarterly reports. So the last quarter, which was October to December, we struck, 2 lawyers were struck off, 7 were suspended within that period. Yes.
What were the nature of the cases?
Most of them are either withholding of funds or failure to communicate with your client, failure to render services. So those are most of the complaints that we get. Yes.
All right. Let's go back to you, James, and look at, in terms of reporting, how, the past, let's use the quarter, not the year. How many cases perhaps have you received that you followed through and they turned out to be, something that was worth your time as FRC?
We've been receiving a number of reports. I think since the Financial Reporting Center was established in 2012, I think in that year we received 34 reports, but progressively...
You're talking about last year?
Yeah, I'm saying progressively we've been increasing as awareness increases. So last year I think we received in the region of 8,000 reports. And the increased number could be due to a number of different reasons. Increased awareness about our role and responsibilities, what we do, and also some of the activities that do take place. Because what we've seen, whenever there's a particular activity, we'd see as a spike in the reports.
Yeah.
I think like Safina mentioned, the NYS scandal. So when that an activity like that happens, then we see a spike in reporting because the reporting institutions then pick that out, and then if they have something, some customers of theirs are related to that, they will then do the report. So we have been received an increased number of reports. But most of these reports that we receive, we do look at them. We do have a way that we prioritize the reports we receive so that we can be able to then disseminate them. What we call that, we don't just, the 8,000 reports we receive, we don't send out all of them. We analyze them. What the Financial Reporter Center does is that it's supposed to look at these reports, analyze them, and see if there's need to share them with the law enforcement or other regulatory bodies for further follow-up. So when we receive these reports, we look at them, look at the issues which are raised in them, look at other sources of information which we have, because we don't just rely on the reports themselves.
Yeah.
We rely on other sources of information, open sources, as I said, the cash transaction, information from other law enforcement agencies, and then we build a case. We build a case, and once we've been able to build a case and see that then this case, particular case needs follow-up, we will then share it with. Now, since the topic here is corruption, then if it's related to corruption, then we'll then share it with the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission or with the Director of Criminal Investigations.
So of those, 8,000 cases that you've mentioned, how many of them were corruption related, and how many of them actually resulted in you getting back the money? Rather following the money to the end.
The way we would do is even though we get, let's say, like the 8,000 reports, would be able to probably bring most of them together if it relates to a particular activity, like if it relates to NYS or NYS2. To the banks or reporting and the different institutions, there would be different reports. But for us, when we disseminate them, it would be probably one report touching on one particular issue. So the number of disseminations we've made over time, I don't have the figures for last year, but I know we've made probably over 200 disseminations, to various law enforcement agencies.
Okay.
Now, the reports which we receive differ on varying things. They could be related to fraud, related to money laundering, terrorism financing, and corruption, and various,
All right. Caroline,
Yes.
when it comes, to lawyers, there's always been the accusation that persons who, steal public funds, take the money, take them to lawyers who now hold them, invest them for them, hold them in trust, and the lawyers do not want to disclose, who gave them the money because of client, privilege and all that. How are you addressing this?
I know you're aware from the Law Society of Kenya website that we are around 18,000 lawyers. And this is the cahoots of people that we regulate. This group of people is what we regulate at the Commission. And indeed, there are a few lawyers who are doing some of these things that they are not supposed to do. And some is either knowingly or unknowingly. And why do I say this? It's because sometimes a client will come and use a lawyer to be able to do certain things, and sometimes a lawyer will not know. And some of these things is that they will come and use a lawyer to legitimize a transaction. So that when they come and say that I used a lawyer in this transaction, people will actually take them seriously and say, oh, I think it's a genuine transaction, when it's not. Another thing is that they will come and use whatever they gained from bribery, corruption, to buy properties, to incorporate companies, to hide behind these companies, and so on and so forth. And sometimes a lawyer would not know. And they'll also come and say, I have this amount of money, which they fear to take to the bank because now the banks are tight.
The financial
reporting. Yes, exactly. Okay. And they will come to the lawyers and put it in the client account and tell the lawyer, oh, let me keep this money here. There's this property I'm following up on, and once it goes through, I'll come and we do this transaction. So some lawyers are not aware. Genuinely, they are not aware. So what is happening is that we are carrying out public sensitization. So we have public sensitization for the public to tell them that when you go to a lawyer, ensure that you do this and this and this, enter into a fee agreement, put your instructions in writing, ensure that you agree on what the lawyer is supposed to do, the frequency of your meetings, and so on and so forth. Then when we go to the lawyers, we are working closely with the Law Society of Kenya, because we have something that we call continuous professional development. So every lawyer is supposed to actually do certain courses or go for certain workshops to be able to renew their practicing certificate. So what we are doing as the commission is that we are partnering with the Law Society of Kenya, where we come and talk to the lawyers on certain things. And I'll say the last continuous legal education or professional development was, I think around February 7th, was actually on money laundering. And what we were urging advocates to do, or what the presenters were urging advocates to do, is that you must carry out due diligence. Know your client. Carry out your due diligence. Ensure that you're up to date with the laws and regulations, for example, what his center does. Ensure that if you see that there are some suspicious transaction, ensure that you're reporting these suspicious transactions. Go and whistleblow, because we have mechanisms and laws and regulations that protect whistleblowers, and so on and so forth. So those are the ways we are educating advocates, because they are indeed advocates who are not aware, and we must educate them. However, we have the rogue lawyers. And these rogue lawyers are the group of lawyers that now we also deal with at the commission. So when they are reported at the commission, we ensure that we take them through the disciplinary process, and either their practicing certificate is withdrawn or suspended, and any other decision that the disciplinary committee will come up with.
Okay.
Yes.
We'll be looking a little bit more in terms of the law, the way it is structured.
Okay.
Is it possible for the government to come after the lawyers who are perhaps hiding this money in property, in the account that you're talking about? But before that, let's quickly go over to Safin. It's time for us to get feedback from those who are watching us at home as well as online regarding our discussion this evening. Do you think, in terms of commission or omission, are the banks doing their job? Are lawyers being held accountable as we continue to fight in this war against graft as a country? So over to you, Safin. What do you have for us?
Of course, we are interacting with our viewers at home on social media to help you also be part of the ongoing conversation in studio. Remember, you can do this by using the hashtag Walking the Talk at Safin_Aching, at Kato Achinga, at KBC Channel 1. Today, one of the questions leading our conversation, we asked you to just share your experience, whether you have been a victim of fraud, money laundering, or you have been conned at any particular point. And Pius Nkuruma, you say, yes, I was frauded by a lady from Senegal, claiming to seek help from me as a trustee for her to get her inheritance money from the bank. All she wanted was for me to cater for the legal fees and the money to be wired to my account. If you have ever received a similar message, then you relate with this particular case. There are others also sharing, having been gone through these cases via mobile money transfer as well. Let me just look at Twitter very quickly. Mary Jane, you say it's about time witnesses said enough and just be part of the solution. Hashtag Walking the. One of the things that stalls corruption is fear. We should not be afraid to speak out, especially as witnesses. Thank you so much for those who are sharing your comments with us. Aching, as I bring it back to you. very quickly, concerning the demonetization exercise that took place last year in June 1st, one of the viewers is asking whether it achieved anything and whether the banks actually, it helped banks in fighting cases of money laundering and finding dirty money. Maybe you can respond to that as soon as we come back. There is still more that is coming on the other side. Plus, we'll be engaging our studio audience also to share with us some of the questions and comments that they have so far with regards to the program. Let's go on a break now.
Welcome back. Indeed, you're watching Walking the Talk. If you're joining us, our discussion this evening focusing specifically on financial institutions in the fight against graft, as well as what really is the role of the Advocates Complaints Commission when it comes to money that is being kept by lawyers that has been acquired fraudulently. What really does the law say, and is it sufficient to be able to ensure that the money that is stolen from graft is actually followed and the Kenyans get back what is owed to them? And for more discussions on this, of course, I've been talking to James Manyonge, who is the Director, Legal Compliance and External Relations at the Financial Reporting Center, as well as Caroline Saroni, who is the Chairperson of the Advocates Complaints Commission. And we also have with us studio audience who in just a bit will be engaging us on what really are their thoughts regarding this discussion. But before we get to them, let me quickly go back to you, James, and just look at, in terms of the Financial Reporting Center, do you have the capacity to be able to get this data from, you know, the financial institutions, the advocates, and whoever else reports to you, to be able to synchronize these numbers within sufficient time to ensure you follow the money before it disappears into offshore accounts?
Thank you very much, Catherine. Maybe let me make one clarification. I think it's very important for our viewers. Advocates are not yet reporting institutions under our legal regime.
Yes, I think she'll tell us. I know it's one of their
yes,
challenges.
So that's why we don't get confused that when did lawyers start reporting?
To you,
no,
yeah.
By global practice, they are required to report, and in most jurisdictions they do report. I think when you look at it in the Eastern and Southern Africa region, the only two countries where advocates are not reporting, that's Kenya and Mozambique, and we hope that this conversation will
Caroline
get them
will
going.
tell us why.
Yeah, but going back to your question, do we have the mechanisms?
Yes.
Yes, with the way the banks report, because as I said, the reporting institutions report, they are obligated to report, and they do make the reports online, which makes it then easy for us to then pick the information and then integrate it in our database and then to look at it. But there's still a lot of work to be done, because reporting is just not for the financial institutions. It's also for this other category of players, the accountants, the real estate dealers, and we're rolling that out, the reporting regime, so they can be able to report. We are aware that with some of those segments, there might be technological challenges for them to report, and we will engage them. But the way the law allows us to receive electronic reports as well as paper-based reports.
Okay.
But we are moving towards, we are enhancing our systems at the Financial Reporting Center. We're in the process of getting a system which is used worldwide by most financial intelligence units. Though we are referred to as Financial Reporting Center in Kenya, our sister institutions in other jurisdictions are normally called financial intelligence units or a financial intelligence agency or a financial intelligence center.
Okay.
So there's a system which is used globally by most of the other systems in the process of seeing if you can acquire that, which will then make, it will be a web-based reporting, and it will make the reporting then seamless. Will be our database will be able to interact with the database of the reporting institutions and be able to pick up the information and make it real time, reduce the number of errors, it reduce the number of
the waiting time for you to be able to
yes,
all right. Caroline, in terms of why are advocates in Kenya not reporting to FRC for us to be able to to continue? You know, you said only 2 countries. We are one of the ones, and mostly we are not known to lag behind.
Okay. One of the main reasons is that we have that what we call advocate-client privilege,
Yes.
which is in all other jurisdictions, Commonwealth jurisdictions. And why this advocate-client privilege is there is so that when you go to your lawyer, you're able to talk freely to your lawyer. You're able to tell your lawyer everything pertaining to your case so that your lawyer can find the best way to represent you. Okay? So now, if this privilege is not protected, then we will definitely affect the whole justice system, isn't it? So this is where the lawyers are coming from. They are saying, no, there is this advocate-client privilege, and when we open this up, then we are going to affect the justice system. And that is where now the contention is. And that is why the lawyers are saying, they are fighting this and saying we would like to report, but this will affect that privilege. So what is happening, and if you look at the Act,
Yes.
the Proceeds of Crimes Act, they are telling professionals to report. So when you see suspicious transactions, please report.
So as an advocate, you're also being told
Yes,
report.
you're urged. And you know, if you read our code of conduct, our code of ethics, Lawyers Act, we are supposed to conduct ourselves with the highest degree of honesty and integrity. So lawyers are expected to be honest, to be people of integrity, to ensure that due process is followed, isn't it? And to ensure that they are not practicing what we call sharp practice. And sharp practice is whereby you use illegal means to advance your client's case. So that if you're able to see that your client indeed is engaging in illegal activities, then you have the responsibility to actually go forward and report.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
I think,
no, just hold that thought. We want to now hear from the audience, then you give us your feedback. So Safin, if you're ready, let's hear what our studio audience have to say.
All right, so it's a time now to open the floor to our audience also. So I'll just start with the gentleman sitting right there. Make your question very brief, direct it to the panel. Then I'll take 2 from this side, then we can move to the other side.
Thank you so much, Mr. James and Caroline. I'm Adaro Christopher, and I want to be very brief and very direct. Caroline, you are representing the lawyers, and Mr. James, you are representing the bankers. Let us take this issue this way. Will the lawyers stop defending corrupt people in this Republic of Kenya? And will the bankers stop wiring networks, transactions that are suspected to proceed from crime proceeds?
Okay,
Thank you for your question. All right, just pass it. Anyone else? Okay, make it quick.
Yes, I'm Abel Mukwa. I am directing my question specifically to James. After you have received these cases of suspicious money transactions, what next after the reports? After you have the reports, are you at a position to prosecute, or you just send them to EACC and DCI? After sending those reports to EACC and DCI, do you follow up on what next? And kindly, can you share the statistics of the reports which have gone to a successful prosecuted?
Thank you for that question. One last one from this side, and then I'll come back later on this side.
Okay, thank you very much for coming. My question is to Madam Caroline. You've said lawyers, actually there are lawyers who have been suspended, others who have stripped of that privilege of becoming a lawyer. My question is, what are the measures put forward so that actually the general public can know that this lawyer, this person is no longer a lawyer? And also, Mr. James, do you think banks are genuine with the report they are actually giving you? Because we know of customers, banks are are in business. And we have customers also, they will never want to lose because they are bringing a lot of profit. Do you think that reporting those customers to you, they think that if they report that customer to you, they will actually lose a lot? Do you think they are genuine to their report?
Thank you so much for your question. Just one question. Maybe the panel can respond.
I can take one more then.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you very much. My name is Pidgin. My question is directed to Mr. James. I understand so many departments dealing with finance in this country, because even there's the banking and fraud department, there's recovery assets department under ethics and anti-corruption. And most of the time you say the information originates from which source? Does it originate from the people reporting, or from like the scandal you find the DCI, the people bringing the case back to you? And the process of following money, especially in online transaction, how people are being scammed with the fraudster in the cryptocurrency system. Do you have measures as the department to report, especially the bitcoins and the cryptocurrency, where most of people lose their cash? That's my question.
Thank you for that. All right.
All right, so I think you can begin by responding, then we'll come to
Okay,
the round.
thank you very much, Catherine.
Yeah.
But before even I respond, let me just start with the issue which Caroline raised in terms of the
But because of time, I need you to be quick, so
very
you
quick.
can be able to go
The issue
through
of the advocate-client confidentiality.
Yes.
When you look at the aspect of reporting, there are only 5 instances where the lawyers are required to report under the law. It's when they are, in the case of buying and selling of property, when they are handling client money and organizing organizing clients' money, and also when they are undertaking payment for them. On terms of receiving instructions to act, that is protected privilege, and that's universal, it's wide over, and it also applies to us. It does not affect the aspect of reporting. And even the other jurisdictions which lawyers are reporting also have advocate-client confidentiality, and they're not going to discussions. I think it's very important, maybe today's not the day for lawyers, but we'll need to have that conversation to then dispel that fear that by reporting, they're going to be infringing upon the kind of confidentiality, because even banks have bank customer confidentiality. They do report, but we'll come to that on the day.
Let's talk about the integrity of banks based on the question that he has asked.
His question was, do banks, are they genuine in their reporting?
Yes.
I think that was their question. Then there's the aspect of motive. I mean, if you have a customer who's brought in good sums of money, do you want to lose these customers? Yes, the obligation to report is mandatory. Yeah. So it's sort of question of do they want to report, or or should they not report? There are parameters which have been set, and I think Safina read that to us under Section 44 of the Act. Then the regulations have spelled out what constitutes a suspicious transaction report. We have also given guidance on indicators of what could amount to a suspicious transaction. Now, if a bank does not report a customer based on probably it meets the parameters for reporting their suspicious transactions, which should have been reported and are not reported, then they can then find themselves in trouble. Now, the central bank and ourselves do undertake inspection of these institutions to check if they are complying with the requirements. And if we find that they're not complying with the requirements, then steps will be taken, and the law has been provided for that. So there are obligations to report, and we have seen even universally where banks are afraid to stop and to report, and they're caught up with, action is then taken. Yeah, so it's then a question of, I know even it may look like business sense, but at the end of the day, it doesn't pay for reports not to be made.
He made a question regarding the bitcoins. Are you able to track that as well?
Bitcoins, there's an ongoing conversation globally about virtual currencies.
Yes.
There's the body which sets standards for money laundering and terrorism finance is called the Financial Action Task Force. There's not yet an agreement about how to handle cryptocurrencies or virtual assets. So there is they're in the process of coming up with a standard which will then cover, Bitcoin is just one of the virtual assets, and how those assets will be dealt with, because you'll also recognize that even globally, there's no agreed approach to deal with virtual assets. Some countries have outlawed them, some countries have cautioned against dealing with them, some have allowed them people to deal with them at their own risk. But the FATF is saying, because it is recognition that virtual assets can be used for purposes of laundering funds. So, but there's not yet, and we are also following that conversation. As soon as the standards are released, we are then going to adapt our mechanism to then meet that.
Okay.
Yes.
Caroline, let's move over to you. The question about, lawyers defending people who are corrupt.
So will the lawyers stop defending
People who are
corrupt?
Yes.
No, they will never stop defending people who are corrupt because they are suspects. So they have a right to representation, just like any other Kenyan. So they will not stop to represent these people, just like lawyers will not stop representing murderers and so on and so forth. So they will not stop. They will not stop.
So what recourse is there?
So what recourse is there is that lawyers are expected to perform their duties with the highest standards of honesty and integrity. So they are not supposed to represent their client and say that I will win whatever way, what we call sharp practice. And therefore they use illegal means to ensure that the client actually wins a case, isn't it? So they are supposed to ensure that they adhere to the law, they adhere to the due process of the law. And they must ensure that, first of all, they owe an allegiance to the court, they have a duty to the court. And therefore, they must ensure that whatever evidence they are giving is actually correct evidence. Whatever laws and they are depending on are actually the way they are utilizing whatever evidence they are using is in the correct manner, because they owe that duty to the court.
Okay.
Yes.
I think he had asked a question regarding once you get the data,
Yes.
what are the statistics and what happens after that?
Actually, I was going to say that. Yes, when we get the data, as I said earlier, when we get the report from the report institution, we don't just leave it at that. We look at that report and then also consult other sources of information, either open source of information, also look at our database, and also if we need to pick information from out of the jurisdiction, we will also liaise with our sister institutions, other financial intelligence units, if that transaction is of a global nature. If it involves country A, country B, we can go to that country and try and see whatever we have. Now, when we get that information, we then, as I said at the beginning, put it together, analyze it, and then share to the institutions. Now, why does the Financial Reporting Center exist? Why do FIUs exist?
Okay.
We are supposed to bring in the aspect of following the money. Traditionally, law enforcement have been investigating the criminal activity. Now, behind any criminal activity, there's a financial side to it. There are people who finance these criminal activities. There's also the proceeds of the criminal activity. For example, corruption. When someone has engaged in corruption, where do the proceeds of corruption go? Where have the proceeds of corruption been invested into? What has been done with the proceeds of corruption? Now, we come in as a financial reporting center to assist in tracing these funds. Have they been invested in assets? Who are the players who are then involved in this network? Now, when we put together this
respond
information...
to the question of statistics so that we can be able to take other questions as well.
The statistics in terms of the
Yes.
the number of reports.
Yes.
I don't have with me right now the number of reports we have sent to EACC, but they're quite a significant number of reports. And we do get most of the cases which a number of cases which EACC is following up on actually originate from us, and we're able to see them from investigation with EACC and also then being prosecuted. But some of these reports may originate from us, others EACC may start and then may come to us for information. So it's a combination of both ways, yes.
All right, I think we'll take a couple more questions before we
Catherine.
conclude. Safin?
All right, let's take the final round of questions. I'll begin with the gentleman sitting.
Just go straight to the question because of time.
Okay, I'm Steven. To Mr. James. We have cases where a person may have more than 2 bank accounts with different banks. So how do you know that this person, as in his transaction, that some account has this amount of money and this one? How do you regulate that?
Thank you for that question.
Thank you. Let's take one more from this side, then conclude.
My name is Sang. My question comes to Caroline. First, you fall under the Office of Attorney General, right?
Yes.
And then, what is your relationship now with LSK? That is, those Artists of Kenya. And the other thing is, we know of the commissions that exist in Kenya. We know of IBC, NSI, IPOA, and the rest. Is it the right time for your office to come out to Kenyans, because most Kenyans, especially for us young people, we are always updated to everything.
Just
but
go
we
straight
don't.
to your question because
Yes.
of time.
Is the right time? Is it the right time for you to come out and sensitize the public about yourself?
Okay. Thank you. Let's quickly take those ones. We have
And to
like
get
less than 5
the
minutes.
issue on 2 bank accounts, I didn't quite get what the issue was. You said, is it a problem? Yeah.
Yeah, we install money. You want to have bank accounts so that you can add this corrupted money to some accounts.
Okay. I think there's no limit to the number of bank accounts an individual can hold. You can.
I've said that you may steal money, and because you have 2 accounts, you divide them to the.
I think the question is, when you have 2 bank accounts, is it possible for you to be able to trace both accounts and link them to the same person?
Yes, it's possible. Actually, that's what we usually do. We'll probably find if a transaction was undertaken in a particular account, and let's say Bank A, and Bank A reports to us. They may not be aware that you have another account in Bank B.
Yes.
But by us following and tracing where these assets are going, we can be able to link Bank A to Bank C, and probably into other accounts, Bank D, etc. So yes, we're able to link and trace how the movement of the funds goes.
Caroline, take a question.
Oh, thank you, Catherine. So before I go to the last question, there's a question that was asked that we didn't tackle. Right? Someone asked about the measures that we have put forward to notify Kenyans when a lawyer has been struck off or suspended. So there's the Law Society of Kenya website, and also there's our website where we have a link to the Law Society of Kenya website. So if you go there and you just type the advocate's name, say Peter Korir, and you type it, then you'll get the details of that lawyer. So you'll be able to know, is the lawyer active this year? Has the lawyer been suspended? Has he been struck off? So that information is in the LSK website. And also
the second question.
Oh, okay. Let me just point one more thing. Also, the Commission publishes quarterly reports. So we have quarterly reports whereby we are able to detail what the Commission is doing. So we are able to say we received this number of cases with regards to lawyers. We prosecuted these ones. These are still under investigation. So we're able to give details of what we do in these quarterly reports, and they are found in the Kenya Gazette. Then on the last question, yes, we fall under the Office of the Attorney General, and our relationship with LSK is that LSK is one of our stakeholders. So we have to work with the LSK. And also the LSK Secretariat sits in the disciplinary committee. So the disciplinary committee is a quasi-judicial entity, yes. So where we go to prosecute the complaints. So the LSK is the secretary. So we have to work with the LSK, and they are our stakeholders. We work with them with regards to sensitization of lawyers on different things.
Okay.
And then there was
our time is up. So I'll just give you 10 seconds to give your
to finish my okay. So there's the issue of visibility, which I think, as I give my parting shot, the Commission has been working very hard to ensure that it is visible. So we are undertaking public sensitization programs around the country. We've been able to visit different counties whereby we are able to tell the people about us. We also have our website. We are starting our social media handles. So we are trying to reach the people.
Okay.
And
your time is
my
up.
time.
James, 10 seconds just to give you a parting shot.
My 10 seconds, I think, let's say there's a lot that we at the Financial Reporting Center do. We are going to be a bit more active in terms of getting the members of the public to know what we do, because I think from the question that came, not many people know what we do. We do interact not only with the financial sector, so someone says, do you are for the financial sector? No, we also cover the non-financial sector, as I said, the accountants, etc., real estate dealers, and we all have a role. It's just that time is not there, but we all have a role to play to curb corruption, to curb financial crime, because it starts with the banks, the reporting institutions, and ourselves as individuals, who are the ones who are at the forefront, then the institutions, and then law enforcement. So we all have to work together to ensure that we prevent it, and where it happens, it's able to be investigated and to be prosecuted and
All
support
right.
that.
Thank you all very much. Unfortunately, our time is up. I wish we had more time to continue this discussion because there are a lot of questions that are coming out of this. But we appreciate you finding time this evening to join us and just share light on what you're doing in the continued war against corruption.
Okay, thank you, Catherine.
Well, we have been talking to James Manyonge, who is the Director, Legal Compliance and External Relations at the Financial Reporting Center. And we also had with us Caroline Saroni, who is the Chairperson of the Advocates Complaints Commission, just looking at when it comes to the war against graft, how do you follow the money? And of course, what is the role of the advocates in all this and some of the legal issues that are going around in terms of how do we follow the money when it gets into the hands of the lawyers. But we have to put a cap on the program this evening. My name is Catherine Achenga. Thank you for watching. Hand it over to Safin to give your final feedback before we completely wrap up this show. Safin?
Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for being a part of this. Silvana Sindaso on Twitter, you say the banks are encouraging the looting. They don't caution, they don't do background check anymore as long as they are making profit. Thank you for those who reacted on social media, and thank you to our studio audience for being a part of this and for their questions, and to our very able panel as well. My name is Safin Achieng Ouma. Thank you so much. See you next time.
On the next episode of